Section 1, Prologue, The Unthinkable Attack. Normandy, summer of 1944. From the embattled earth, the growl of German tank engines rumbled, a deep, menacing chorus of steel and might. Above this metallic din, a thin, persistent whine sliced through the air, the distinctly annoying drone of a Piper Cub L4 Grasshopper. German tank crews, battle-hardened and confident in their mechanical beasts, cast amused glances skyward. What threat could possibly come from that harmless, flimsy, cage-like aircraft, a mere spotter plane barely faster than a bicycle? Their smiles, however, were about to be abruptly wiped away, for from the side of that seemingly innocuous little plane, a fiery vortex erupted, tearing through the calm summer air with terrifying speed and precision. It was a scene entirely outside the realm of conventional warfare, a moment of profound psychological disequilibrium. The Germans, steeped in their meticulously planned tactical doctrines, simply did not anticipate that an L4 Grasshopper, later to be christened Bazooka Charlie, would be capable of inflicting such catastrophic damage, least of all, destroying a staggering 6 German tanks. Their entire understanding of aerial threats was predicated on armored, weapon-laden fighters and bombers, not on a slow, unarmored reconnaissance aircraft, a civilian plane pressed into military service. This fundamental miscalculation, this profound underestimation of their adversary, became the pivotal element in the American crew's unexpected triumph. This psychological chasm, the Germans' absolute conviction of their own superiority and the sheer, brutal unexpectedness of the attack, was the American crew's greatest asset, their ultimate trump card. They exploited the enemy's blind spot with audacious cunning, turning a perceived weakness into an overwhelming strength. The moment a seemingly helpless aircraft transformed into a deadly tank hunter was not just a tactical victory. It was a psychological blow, a testament to the fact that in the chaos of war, ingenuity and sheer guts could shatter even the most rigid of military doctrines. The skies above Normandy were about to witness a legend being born, a tale of 2 men and their tiny plane defying all odds and expectations. Section 2, Heroes and their Iron Grasshopper. To understand the astonishing events that unfolded high above the battlefields of Normandy, one must first meet the protagonists and the unlikely steed upon which they rode into legend. This extraordinary feat was not the work of heavily armed bomber crews or elite fighter pilots, but rather 2 resourceful individuals and their seemingly outmatched aircraft, Lieutenant Omar Bazooka Charlie Capps, the pilot, and Lieutenant Fred Skip Ryerson, the observer. Their mount was an L4 Grasshopper, a military designation for what was, in essence, a civilian Piper J3 Cub, a light aircraft designed for leisurely flights and pilot training, now pressed into the brutal realities of war. The specifications of their Iron Grasshopper underscore the sheer audacity of their mission. This fabric-covered bird boasted a maximum speed of a mere 140 kilometers per hour, approximately 87 miles per hour. It possessed absolutely no inherent armor, offering its occupants no protection against even small arms fire, let alone anti-aircraft guns or the formidable weaponry of German tanks. Crucially, and perhaps most strikingly, it came with no standard factory-installed armament whatsoever. It was a plane built for observation, communication, and light transport, not for engaging enemy armor. A lesser-known, yet significant, detail about these L4 Grasshopper crews is their often unconventional backgrounds. Many of them were not career military pilots trained in combat aircraft. Instead, they frequently hailed from civilian aviation, bringing with them a different kind of expertise. These were former flight instructors, experienced bush pilots, and passionate amateur aviators, individuals who had honed their skills in the skies for sport or practical civilian purposes. This background endowed them with an almost intuitive understanding of their lightweight machines, allowing them to fly them with a virtuosity that few traditional military pilots could match. Their civilian experience fostered an adaptability and resourcefulness that would prove invaluable in the dire circumstances of war. They understood the nuances of low-altitude flight, the delicate balance of air currents, and the art of coaxing every ounce of performance from their simple aircraft skills that would soon be applied in a wholly unexpected and deadly manner. Adding a layer of intriguing folklore to their story is a persistent rumor, almost an anecdote, surrounding the acquisition of their unconventional weaponry. According to the legend, Capps and Ryerson didn't receive their bazookas through official requisitions channels. Instead, they borrowed the M1 bazookas from a ground-based infantry unit, promising to return them with interest, as the story goes. This implies a profound disregard for military protocol and a bold, perhaps even reckless, initiative on their part. Crucially, there were no official authorizations or formal permissions granted for the audacious modification of their reconnaissance aircraft into a makeshift tank killer. This act of brazen improvisation, born out of necessity and a refusal to be mere passive observers of the unfolding battle, lays the groundwork for the extraordinary ingenuity that would define their legendary engagement. It hints at the spirit of independent action and creative problem-solving that would transform a humble observation plane into a formidable, if improbable, weapon of war. Section 3. Ingenious Improvisation. The birth of the flying bazooka. The transformation of a defenseless reconnaissance plane into a formidable tank hunter was an act of profound ingenuity born from desperation and the urgent demands of the battlefield. This wasn't a pre-planned military strategy, but rather a brilliant, on-the-spot improvisation by two men determined to make a difference with the limited resources at their disposal. The core of their innovation lay in attaching the M1 bazookas to the L4 Grasshopper's wing struts. This was achieved not through advanced engineering or specialized equipment, but with astonishingly simple, readily available materials, ordinary clamps and makeshift brackets. These rudimentary fastenings secured the anti-tank weapons to the flimsy airframe, a testament to the crew's resourcefulness and their willingness to risk everything on an untested concept. However, simply attaching the bazookas was only part of the challenge. Operating them in midair presented an even more perilous logistical hurdle. This task fell to the observer, Lieutenant Ryerson. Perched precariously in the open cockpit, often standing on his knees, he was responsible for manually reloading the weapon after each shot. This was an incredibly dangerous endeavor. Imagine the scene. Ryerson, straining against the G-forces of the aircraft, the wind whipping around him, fumbling with the cumbersome bazooka rounds, all while the aircraft was likely maneuvering aggressively. The risk of accidentally falling out of the cockpit or of a misstep with a live warhead was terrifyingly real. Each reload was a high-stakes gamble, a moment of extreme vulnerability for the entire crew. This audacious modification and the perilous method of operation were not just acts of desperation. They represented a stroke of genuine, battlefield-born brilliance. The crew transformed the very characteristics that made the L4 Grasshopper seem unsuitable for combat, its slow speed and its ability to fly at very low altitudes, into its primary tactical advantages. While faster, heavier aircraft needed significant space to maneuver and engage, the Grasshopper could loiter, hugging the terrain, providing a stable platform for precision targeting. Its low speed allowed Ryerson the crucial extra seconds needed to aim and reload, something impossible in a faster aircraft. The ability to fly at very low heights meant they could approach targets virtually undetected by ground radar, which was less prevalent for such low-flying threats, and evade heavier anti-aircraft fire by staying beneath its effective envelope. In essence, they didn't fight the limitations of their aircraft, they embraced them. They leveraged the Grasshopper's inherent stealth and agility at low altitudes, converting its perceived weaknesses into unique tactical strengths. It was a profound act of strategic reversal. As one might imagine the pilots reflecting on their experience, perhaps they would have uttered words echoing the spirit of that era. We didn't expect to become ordnance engineers, but when you see those cats, panthers, down there, you start thinking very, very quickly. This hypothetical quote perfectly captures the essence of their improvisation. A rapid, pragmatic response to an immediate, existential threat, driven by an overwhelming desire to protect their comrades on the ground and to strike back at the formidable enemy. They became weapon designers and tactical innovators out of sheer necessity, forging a new kind of aerial warfare from scraps and ingenuity. Section 4. August 7, 1944. The Hunt under Mortain. The stage for this extraordinary aerial duel was set on August 7th to 8th, 1944, in the vicinity of the French town of Mortain. This period marked a critical juncture in the Normandy campaign, specifically during the German counteroffensive known as Operation Luttich. As part of this desperate attempt to break through Allied lines and cut off American forces, German tanks, likely a mix of PZ, KPFW.IVs, and the more formidable Panthers, were on the move, posing a significant threat to the Allied positions. It was into this cauldron of conflict that Capps and Ryerson, on a routine reconnaissance flight, stumbled upon their destiny. Performing their usual observation duties, the crew of the L-4 Grasshopper spotted a column of these German tanks. Instead of merely reporting their position and retreating, they made a daring and immediate decision. They would attack. This choice was audacious, given their aircraft's nature, but it underscored their determination. Their tactical approach was as improvised as their weaponry, yet remarkably effective against the slow-moving ground targets. The strategy involved a steep dive towards the enemy tanks, followed by a precise leveling out to a straight, low-altitude approach. This maneuver was crucial as it provided Lieutenant Ryerson, the observer, with the critical window to aim his bazooka. The goal was to achieve a direct line of sight to the tank's more vulnerable points, their sides or their rear armor, which offered far less protection than their heavily armored fronts. The actual firing of the bazooka was executed from an astonishingly close range, mere dozens of meters. This proximity was not only necessary for accuracy with such a crude aiming system but also indicative of the immense courage displayed by the crew. Imagine the harrowing experience. Ryerson, secured by his seatbelts, straining to aim through the small plexiglass windshield, the cacophony of the engine and the rushing wind filling his ears. The slipstream would have been so powerful that it likely tore at his flight helmet, threatening to rip it from his head. Then, the thunderous roar of the bazooka firing, the smell of cordite and burning propellant instantly permeating the small cockpit, followed by a telltale cloud of smoke and debris trailing behind the little plane. Below, the immediate, devastating consequence. A bright flash of impact as the rocket slammed into the fuel tank of a Panther, igniting it in a spectacular explosion. This was not a detached, impersonal engagement from thousands of feet. It was a visceral, terrifyingly intimate combat, a dance with death at treetop level, where every shot counted and every maneuver skirted the edge of disaster. The combination of precision, proximity, and sheer nerve allowed them to punch far above their weight, turning the tide of the ground battle with each successful hit. Section 5. Shock, Rumors, and Command Reaction. The immediate aftermath of Bazooka Charlie's extraordinary engagement over Mortain sent ripples of shock and confusion far beyond the battlefield. The impact of their success was felt most acutely, and perhaps most comically, within the German lines. One of the most enduring rumors to emerge from this period, one that speaks volumes about the sheer disbelief and tactical disarray caused by Capps and Ryerson, was the report allegedly sent up the German chain of command. It was widely whispered that German officers, completely flummoxed by the sudden and devastating loss of multiple tanks to an unknown aerial threat, reported the use by the Americans of aircraft armed with 75mm cannons. This wildly inaccurate assessment underscores just how profoundly destructive the effect of the bazooka rockets was, and how utterly inconceivable it was to the German high command that such damage could be inflicted by a tiny, unarmed spotter plane. The idea of an L-4 Grasshopper with a 75mm cannon was ludicrous, yet it was a more palatable explanation than admitting defeat at the hands of what amounted to a glorified crop duster wielding infantry anti-tank weapons. What is perhaps less known, and often overshadowed by the spectacular nature of Capps and Ryerson's achievement, is that their feat, while phenomenal, was not entirely isolated in terms of concept. Other L-4 crews, inspired by necessity or rumor, also experimented with attaching bazookas to their aircraft. The spirit of improvisation was infectious, and the need to counter German armor was paramount. However, despite these various attempts and innovations by other Grasshopper pilots, no other crew managed to replicate the sheer, concentrated success of Capps and Ryerson's single-sortie destruction of 6 German tanks. Their phenomenal achievement remained unique, a benchmark of battlefield ingenuity that, while inspiring, was never quite matched in its scope and impact by others attempting similar tactics. The story's reach eventually extended to the highest echelons of the American military. The audacious actions of Bazooka Charlie and Skip Ryerson, despite their blatant disregard for official protocol and the inherent dangers, could not be ignored. A legendary quote, attributed to General Omar Bradley, one of the most prominent American commanders of World War II, perfectly encapsulates the tension between military discipline and the undeniable effectiveness of their rogue operation. Bradley is said to have remarked, "I ought to court-martial him for insubordination, but damn it, how can I do that after 6 knocked-out tanks?" This apocryphal statement, if true in spirit, highlights the dilemma faced by military leadership: how to punish an act of self-willed conduct that yielded such overwhelmingly positive results. It speaks to a pragmatic acknowledgement that sometimes, in the crucible of war, breaking the rules can be exactly what's needed to achieve victory, even if it creates a logistical and disciplinary headache for those in command. The sheer impact of those 6 destroyed tanks outweighed any potential charge of insubordination, cementing the duo's place in the annals of wartime heroism. Section 6. The Legacy of Bazooka Charlie, Myth and Reality. The extraordinary exploit of Bazooka Charlie and Skip Ryerson transcends a mere wartime anecdote. It has firmly embedded itself as a powerful symbol of American military improvisation. Their audacious mission against German tanks underscored a crucial lesson in combat: that true battlefield effectiveness often hinges not solely on superior technology or overwhelming force, but profoundly on the audacity, courage, and sheer resourcefulness of the fighting personnel. It was a vivid demonstration that well-trained, highly motivated individuals, even with unconventional and self-made tools, could outmaneuver and defeat a technologically advanced enemy. Their actions proved that the human element, ingenuity, bravery, and the refusal to accept limitations can often be the most decisive factor in the chaos of war. In a broader historical context, the L for Grasshopper, modified with bazookas, can be viewed as a spiritual ancestor, a grandfather, to modern light attack aircraft and dedicated helicopter gunships. These contemporary platforms, much like Capps and Ryerson's makeshift tank hunter, are specifically designed for the close-quarters hunting of tanks and other armored vehicles from relatively short distances. The concept of a highly maneuverable, low-flying aircraft providing precision anti-armor support, albeit with significantly more advanced technology, traces a conceptual lineage back to that humble Piper Cub. It was an early, crude, yet remarkably effective demonstration of what close air support against armor could achieve when executed with daring and tactical insight, paving the way for future developments in aerial anti-tank warfare. The ultimate takeaway from the story of Bazooka Charlie is far more than just a thrilling wartime tale. It serves as a potent lesson in the enduring power of human innovation and individual courage under duress. This is not simply a legend. It is a profound illustration of how the quick thinking, adaptability, and unwavering bravery of two men fundamentally altered the outcome of a single, yet critically important, engagement. Their actions around Mordine were a small but significant turning point, a testament to the fact that even in the largest and most destructive conflicts, the individual spirit of initiative can carve out moments of decisive victory. The legacy of Bazooka Charlie reminds us that sometimes the most effective weapons are not forged in factories, but in the crucible of necessity, wielded by those bold enough to challenge the conventional wisdom of war.